question on climate change, because you said early on that you want the ECB to play a pivotal role in fighting climate change, also during the strategy review, or including that in the strategy review. What does that mean concretely? I mean, what kind of things do you have in mind? And then one other aspect, you were saying as well that you want to bring the ECB closer to the people. If we bridge that to inflation, there's a big gap between how people think inflation is actually developing and how inflation is measured. In terms, people feel that inflation is a lot higher. Would you also include real estate price development in a new inflation measurement, perhaps? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your two questions. On climate change, what I said and will continue to say is that it is everybody's responsibility, wherever he or she is, to see what he or she can actually do to fight climate change and protect biodiversity. I insist on the two components. So let me tell you what we already do, because it's not as if, you know, it's a newborn baby because I arrive. Quite a lot had already been undertaken, and I would refer you to an excellent speech that Benoît Cœuré had given back about 6 or 8 months ago about these topics. So I just want to summarize what we do, because there's always questions and sort of testing of her views versus the rest. Things are actually happening. First of all, we have, as you know, an ECB staff pension fund. And I'm looking at my paper because I don't want to give you anything that is wrong. So we replaced the previous benchmarks for the equity funds by their low carbon equivalents. And that came on the top of the selective exclusion and proxy voting guidelines that have already been in place for much longer than me. But that's an add-on to what we had in place. It does not apply to a very, very sizable amount. It's roughly 1 billion euros, but, you know, small rivers make very large oceans eventually when they're protected. The second deals with the ECB's own funds portfolio, and that applies to the ECB paid-up capital and the general reserve funds. Altogether, that's a little over 20 billion euros. On that, we're investigating how climate change-related considerations can be better integrated than they are at the moment. And as a first step, we have decided to increase the share of green investment held in the portfolio, subject to availability and liquidity of such funds, of course. Now, the third step has to do with our monetary policy portfolio, which is much larger. And as you know, there is only a portion of that which is in corporate asset purchases. It's roughly, take it or leave it, 200 billions relative to over 2 trillions for the entire asset purchase program. I think on that, the strategy is going to have to review what the bank can do, should do, how much it collides with the mandate, and if so, I think we should very expressly say so. But if it doesn't, I'm giving you a for instance. It's not something that has been opined upon, that has been considered at all, but you know, you can look at what ESG, for instance, criteria are respected by the issuers. You can assess the value of collaterals in order to determine what is the risk associated with collaterals, and so on and so forth. So those are just, you know, a few areas. In addition to that, there is work also that is ongoing in various departments at the ECB to make sure that the climate risk is actually embedded in the work that they do in terms of risk assessment, in terms of models, in terms of their forecast, and you know, this is work in progress. It's not something that is completed and that is finished. I will myself finish with the area of financial stability, because there is also work going on in order to define better stress testing, and that framework normally should be completed at the end of 2020 at the latest. This is work that is internal to the ECB, and that is separate from what the SSM is doing as well separately. We also have, together with the European Systemic Risk Board, we have a pilot framework that is under review as well, and which should be completed as well in the fall of 2020. So there is a lot going on. And as you will see in the press release that you receive later on in a very short while, actually, you will see that environment sustainability is captured very well in the description of our strategy review. It's right in their second bullet point. Oh, you asked me another one?
Yeah, the real estate and inflation policy.
Oh, yes. Real estate. As I said, we will not leave any stone unturned. And how we measure inflation is clearly something that we need to look at. Are we going to resolve the issues? I doubt it. Clearly the issue of housing and the distinction between the homeowner occupancy versus the non-owner occupancy, the reality and the perception, the difference between large urban centers and rural areas, all of that is infinitely difficult to apprehend and to calculate, but we need to look at it and we need to understand. And if we believe that there is a clear miscalculation between what is there, which is roughly 6% of the budget, if I recall, and what is the perception, we need to understand why. And if there is a real difference, which there might well be, then we need to pass that on to Eurostat and have Eurostat do further and additional work. I'm not suggesting that it's going to be resolved in 1 year. When I was finance minister in France, we had our issues with the value of real estate, and it took a lot of time.
Mr. Ferris?